All right, real excited to speak to my next guest who's on the Sports Card Shop guest line. She's multi talented, I like to say, and doing some good stuff in the hobby. And happy to have her on the show. We're going to talk about some of that stuff she does. But Kayla collects. Welcome to Sports Card Nation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have a conversation today.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, Kayla. Again, I know some of your background from seeing you on other programs and that sort of thing. But for those that haven't, kind of, how did you get your start into collecting cards?
Yeah, so I've been collecting since 2013. So this is my 10th year collecting. And in 2013, well, I grew up going to raise games, and I saw people getting autographs on cards, and I was like, I want cards to get autographs on. So I went to Target and bought 2 packs of 2013 Top Series 1 baseball. Pulled a Manny Machado rookie card in that pack, which was my favorite non-Rays player at the time, and I was hooked ever since. And I started my Instagram in 2016, so I've been on there a while, but formerly known as Card Collector 8117, and made the transition to Kayla Collects in the summer last year.
Yeah, I think that one's easier to remember than I can't even remember my phone number half the time. So I think Kayla collects is a lot easier to remember and represents you obviously as well. So you mentioned, kind of seeing people get autographs. Is TTM sort of a big thing with certain people in the hobby? There's a whole segment of that. Obviously, in person and in TTM are different. Is TTM something you've ever done or interested in?
Yeah, I did it. I've done it on and off since I started collecting. I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos of people getting TTM successes and following what they did. But I haven't done it in a while. I've just had other things that have taken priority. But I like to do it if there's a guy that my favorite team gets, or somebody like that I don't have their autograph. I might try to send. I've been looking into sending some out for the NWSL, the Women's Soccer League, because there's some that I won't see. So hopefully, maybe I'll give it a try again.
Yeah, no doubt. A lot of people have success with that. It's a great way to obtain autographs, especially of athletes that you're fond of, and like you said, may not have the opportunity to be in at the same place at the same time. I know you're unless things have changed. You like Austin Hayes, Willie Adames. They're having good starts to the 2023. I know Austin Hayes is on my fantasy team, so definitely keeping close tabs there. Batting at the time of this interview, he's batting 350 with 3 home runs. Willie Adames also 3 home runs, nine ribbies. What was it? I know Austin Hayes. You worked with you know Frederick, and you kind of through that. But what is it about those two particular ball players that you have a fondness for?
So with Willie, I followed his career throughout the time when he was in the minors with the Rays, and I got to meet him at a dinner the Rays hosted, and he definitely doesn't remember this, but I got his autograph then. When he got called up, I saw him play in Baltimore with the Rays. Because I usually try to go when the Rays come to Baltimore because that's the closest team to me now. And I just got to talking to him. He knew that I was a fan of him, and just chatted it up with him, and I got to know him. And when I see him, he gives me a hug, and I get to just have this connection with the baseball player, which is pretty cool. And I got to see him play in St. Louis with Milwaukee last year, and he actually took a picture with me in the middle of the game, which was pretty funny. And then with Austin Hayes, I started going to Frederick Keys games in 2017, and opening night, he was there. He cracked his bat and gave it to me. And then he went on to Double A, skipped Triple A, went to the majors. So the next year I saw him. He remembered me, so I interviewed him for my journalism class. I got to know him pretty well now. And now we have the Taste the Rainbow celebration that he did is actually because of me. There's a story there too. But yeah, so I just kind of like building connections to players and actually like having somebody to root for because I don't have any family members or anybody I personally know that plays professional sports in any sort of capacity or even college sports. So it's cool to have somebody to root for and really hope that they can do well for themselves.
Yeah, no doubt. Like you said, you brought up a couple examples where you've gotten to know them a little bit, even on a personal level. Both of those gentlemen, and so you have that connection. It's easy to root for people when you have those connections. And I'm rooting for Austin because he's on my fantasy team. You're rooting, I don't know if you do fantasy leagues, but I'm sure you're rooting for him for your own reasons as well, and getting to know them and that sort of thing. So I know you love shows and love attending as many as you can. What I mean, what is it about a show, Kayla, that really that you enjoy on a personal level?
So at a personal level, I like making connections. Again, it goes back to like the connections you make within cards and getting to know people. That's definitely one thing, especially now with women in the hobby getting to meet so many other female collectors. I personally like growing up in this hobby. I haven't didn't really see any females collecting until maybe 2 years ago, at least on social media. I knew there was always female collectors, but I've seen more and more representation, so it's cool getting to meet other ladies and other girls that like collecting and being able to be representation for them also on social media is pretty cool. And also, it's just always awesome to hold cards in your hand that you can't do on any other app. Like you can't do it on eBay, you can't do it on whatnot, whatever. Like you get to actually hold the card in your hand and look at it and like really see if you want to purchase it. So those would be the top two things that shows I really like.
Yeah, I did a show about card shows, and you hit it right on the head, Kayla. Right? There's nothing like if you're going to acquire a card, right? Seeing it in person, looking at it. When you order something, as you said online, sure, there's pictures, right? But a lot of stuff can happen. Maybe someone sends it, even on a bad sort of thing. Someone sends a different card than you can't there's no way to replicate acquiring or handling a card in person to online. You mentioned the people, right? And the tagline of the show is the hobbies to people, right? Getting to talk to people who share that same passion as you. And all that good stuff, and that community you build, and you add to that every year and every show you go to, right? And so it's a great place to build that community. You mentioned women of the hobby, right? I think everyone is important in the hobby, and of course women too. As a woman collector, you know. What are some of the difficulties, being in your opinion, that maybe you're faced with where a male, a collector has an advantage, if you will, or maybe or not the disadvantage that maybe a woman does.
Yeah, so for me, two things. One, I always appear pretty young to people, so people think I'm a lot younger than I am. So that is kind of, I mean, that's not really woman centered, but that's something I deal with. But I think that's less now because now there are kids walking around at shows with $1,000 cards in their cases. But on the women's side, it's gotten better in years, previous years, like leading up to now. But like one is that you don't really find female cards at shows very often. And if they are, they're not in a designated box. They're just in other. They're not even in like the correct sports. They're usually just in non sport. And if they do have female cards, it's usually in like a bargain bin or it could be a female collector that has like them in their showcase. So that's one thing. And then also, sometimes there can just be excuse me, condescending dealers that treat you like you don't know sports, which is funny because I mean, obviously. women know a lot about sports, and I'm one of those people, and I like going to shows and that kind of thing. And so I think that's kind of trending out. Those kind of dealers and old school dealers that may feel that way, um, or not see females at their shows are kind of, I don't know. I think it's trending in the right direction for sure, though.
Yeah, and as a dealer, I still do shows, Kayla. I could, not me. I would never wasn't raised like that. I wouldn't be like that. But I have seen it. I have to sit here and talk to you and say I haven't seen a fellow dealer kind of talk down to a female collector as if just already assuming or sort of writing them off that they know either know less or they don't know. And I've had a conversation with a dealer acquaintance where I saw that occur, and in a little sidebar sort of conversation, I just said, you shouldn't really, probably talk to people like that. It's not very nice. And, I have a lot of female friends that can go toe to toe to me when it comes to sports banter. So I know if on firsthand, my wife is very, for the most part, well versed with certain sports and things like that. So I don't, I something I don't do. I have seen it occur. I don't. When I have seen it, it makes me sort of mad. Not sort of. It makes me mad and disappointed that someone is getting treated that way. And as a dealer, it's sort of, even though it's nothing I do, Kayla, it's sort of it gives sort of dealers a bad name as a whole, or maybe that person walks away and fair or unfair, just thinks a lot of dealers are probably thinking the same thing when it may not be the case. You mentioned you feel like it has gotten better. I guess that'll be my next question. What have you seen improve in the years that you've been in the hobby when it comes to women in the hobby?
Just number like pure numbers. There's a lot more people that I see going to shows now. The national last year I saw a lot more. And I think it's also important that people have community. And I think with me like showing my face on social media, and there's so many other women that also do that now, and there's a lot of female breakers like Mama Breaks, and just having representation so young girls or just like women in general can see that women can collect too, and that there's a community of us that all do it and support each other and support each other's ventures. So definitely numbers, and then I would say also just like the cards in general. I think female sports are getting appreciation, and now they're making cards that I think everyone can want to collect. Like Caitlin Clark's getting a card in Bowman University, and I know there's a lot of people, male and female, that want to collect her. And there's a lot of other people that have been collecting. Flage Johnson, who's on LSU, who's in Topps McDonald's All American. And so I think just having cards that everyone can collect, male or female, that have females on the cards, I think is super cool also.
Yeah, no doubt. We've seen those female cards make big strides. Not that it's all about value, right? But when we compare, female sports to male sports, that's one of the comparisons. What a female athlete makes to our male counterpart in the same sport, and I think we do that with cards too. And we've seen some WNBA rookies, Brittany Griner pops right to mind, be four-figure cards in really, high grade condition. So we're seeing, I think that gap is closing, and as it should. And I think with more, I don't even want to say female collectors collecting. I think we're seeing more collectors, Kayla. I don't even want to put like a qualifier. I think we're seeing more collectors collect female athletes on their on the cards. We're seeing you mentioned Caitlin Clark, her Sports Illustrated for Kids card is good luck getting one without breaking the bank. And someone might not like that because it's going to cost them more money, or unfortunately maybe be out of some folks' budget. But it's nice to see female athletes get the recognition not only that they deserve, but they should get. And I think we're seeing strides there. Is it where it should be? Probably not. But I think it's headed in the right direction. Would you agree with those sentiments?
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And it's interesting with the Caitlin Clark scenario because it was in the playoffs that her cards went up so much, and I think the product's coming out in the off season. So I think hopefully that there will be a price point for everybody.
Yeah, and another thing we learned, right? If we were watching that college, the female college NCAA championship, right? They can trash talk just as well as the guys can too. We saw a little bit of that going on, and it was kind of funny to see. But that it's competitive, and people, there's a championship on the line, and heat of battle, right? Heat of the moment, stuff's going to be said, and LSU wound up winning, and they responded some stuff that happened during the game, but it just goes to show you that the sport, they're just as talented and just as competitive and just as feisty. As well, and that's what it's all about. And I got a kick out of seeing that. And your thoughts would. I'm assuming you watched it, but your thoughts on that kind of stuff.
Um, I personally didn't like what Angel Reese did in a certain way. I mean, I'm all for trash talking, but I think there's a time and place to do it, and I think
Yep.
the timing of it wasn't quite right. I think personally, if Angel Reese would have had more points than Caitlin Clark, and if Angel Reese would have been the reason that LSU won, sure, go for it. Like, go for it. But she had a worse game than Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark had double the points she did. And so to taunt her didn't really make sense to me because Caitlin Clark like put the team on her back and almost won for Iowa. And Angel Reese wasn't even like in the game most of the time because she was in foul trouble. So I mean, it grows the game for sure because now there's so many eyes like wanting to watch that matchup next season, which I love. And I'm glad it's getting the appreciation and the numbers it deserves. But that situation, I wasn't quite a fan of.
Yeah, I think she took it a little too far, and she kind of you won. I'm sure you know she went on like podcasts and sports shows the next day and was still seemed for someone who just won a championship. She still seemed a little bit too angry and just trying to really embarrass, whether it be Iowa the team or Caitlin the player. It seemed to be a little too much agenda there. I get it during the game, and she was pointing to her ring finger, basically saying we got the ring. There's a limit, right? There's a line that you cross if you overdo something. I agree that I think she really took it too far. And then even you won, the game's over. The post game interview's fine, but like we're talking days later, she's still like at some point she should just say, "Listen, I said what I've already said. I'm happy for my teammates. We won a championship. We have a ring," and leave it at that. But it continued to be more about so much the other team and other players rather than just celebrating your championship. So yeah, it wasn't the greatest look, but I just think too, like you said, it shows the fire, the fire they have, the competitive, and it's going to bring, like you said, some attention, as seasons, come back and a new season, emerges. So I guess there's good and bad to it, but yeah, I think it was a little bit over the top, but I guess when you win, you have the luxury of doing that, and whether we like it or not. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you just attended the Mint Collective. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I've never been. They've had two of them. Have you been to both, or was this the first one?
This was the first one I went to. I didn't attend last year.
Yeah, so for those people like myself who didn't get to attend, um, kind of give kind of a synopsis of what you appreciated about it. What did you do? and for those that who couldn't attend that event.
Yeah. So I think it was a 4 day, kind of 4 day show, 3 day show. And on Friday was the panel day, and there was no show floor that day. So something I appreciated about the show is you got to directly hear from the hobby and the hobby's, um, I guess, business people in a sense, which you don't get to do that in person very often. I don't think any other show really does that. Of course, you can always watch podcasts, like you can watch their YouTube, whatever. But seeing them in person and being able to ask questions and pick their brains and see what different companies' plans are really cool. And the Sabrina Ionescu was there, which was awesome to see her in that kind of light. She doesn't do many public appearances, so it was cool to see her kind of dip her toes in the hobby a little bit. And the show was, it was, I would say it was like mid tier. The cards were very, what's the word? Highly priced. They were all high end cards, and so they didn't have really cards for everybody, which they are working on for next year. They noticed that also, which is a good thing because I talked to them. They asked me what I thought. But there was really cool like activation booths. Like Panini did a really good job. Topps did a good job. eBay's eBay's booth was really cool. They had like a virtual reality game that where you got to pick what you thought the price of a card was, which was awesome. But I think mainly that show is for people to network and get to see what companies and people have planned for the future of the hobby.
Yeah, and by all accounts, it's something they're going to do every year. It's nice to hear that they listened to your feedback and heard your voice, and hopefully make that event more accustomed for everyone to enjoy. Maybe not just someone with a big bank account and that sort of thing. I wanted, when we were talking about women in the hobby, I wanted to also say, as a dealer, what I'm seeing, and I think it's wonderful. I'm seeing more women behind the tables as dealers themselves. I think that's great. I've been doing shows as a dealer since 1987. I was 15 years old, and I'll be very honest. In those first 10, 15 years of doing shows, I could probably count on one hand the amount of female dealers I've seen running a table, and a lot of times might be a spouse of a dealer who's just there. But we're seeing more female dealers who that's their business, that's their inventory, that's their table. And it's nice to see, and it's that numbers have went up, like I said, exponentially. uh, early early in my show days, and I was traveling and doing shows in different states, so it wasn't like I was doing the same show. I was seeing a lot of different dealers, and that wasn't the case. But now we're seeing more of it, and I think it's great. It's good, and I think it's great for young female hobbyists to have those role models, right? And not just dealers too. We're seeing them in corporate positions in the hobby itself, as well, right? And I think it gives
Mm-hmm.
inspiration to everybody, right? That no matter who you are, the door can be open to you if you work hard and go for what you want to do. Is I know you mentioned you interviewed Austin for your sports journalism. Is that
Mm-hmm.
the career? You're young, so you can change your mind. But is that really the kind of where you want to go, like career wise?
Yeah, so I want to be a sports broadcaster. That's what I'm good at, I think, interviewing players and getting the person behind the athlete. But I think, like long term, my goal is to be a panelist at the Olympics in 2028. So keep an eye out for me there. But long term, it'd be cool to tie in cards with interviews because I don't think collectors often get to see athletes and the way they interact with cards, the way they interact with memorabilia. But then I think there's also a space where you could possibly tie in those two and kind of um, tie in the athlete with the memorabilia and the cards and stuff like that. And we're seeing that a tiny, 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 tiny bit. But I think there is a way where you can truly utilize that and use that as marketing for cards and the athlete themselves, which I uh, would love to be a part of. And I have some kind of ideas for that, but hopefully long term, I'd love to be a sports analyst.
Yeah, no doubt. One thing I admire about you, when I was your age, you know, you're in your 20s. I believe it or not, no one believes me that didn't know me then, but I was actually a very shy young man. I wouldn't do the stuff I'm doing now then. Yet here you are, you know, you public speaking and doing, you know, journalism, you're guest on shows and doing your own content. You know, where does that come from? Like a lot of people your age, and not just female, but like I said, myself too, when I was your age, I would never be able to do some of the stuff you're doing at your age now. Where does that come from? Is it just you self driven? Where does that come from for you?
Yeah. Two things. One, I'm 19, so I'm not in my 20s yet. I have a
Okay,
couple more
okay.
months of being in my teens.
Uh,
But from the content side, I just like it, and I don't know. It uses a part of the creative side of me that other things don't. That's also why I like writing and why I like interviewing athletes, because I love the process of coming up with the questions. And also, I don't know. I've never really had a fear or like a problem with public speaking, which I guess I get from my dad because he used to win like speeches and debates and stuff. But I don't really mind it, which I guess I mean most people really don't like it, but for me, it's just fun, and I tend to, if I get nervous about something or I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this, I go back and think about like younger Kayla when she first started collecting. I would want to do this for her, and I would want her to see someone like her that collects and has their face on camera and talks about their collecting journey, because I think everybody has a story to tell. And I hope that people each get a venue to share that, whether that be in cards or anything else like that. So that's kind of why I like doing it. It brings out a creative side of me, and I enjoy sharing my story and sharing other people's stories.
Yeah, well said, and like you said, you touched on it there at the end of what you said. There is you never know, right? Who may be watching and who you may inspire, right? Maybe a 10-year-old girl or boy that says, "Hey, I want to do that," you know, when I'm 19 or when I'm older, whatever the case may be, and they look at you as sort of their inspiration, like, "Hey, if Kayla can do it, I might be able to do it." Too. And you never know if you impact one person in that kind of way, Kayla. I mean, that's you know this just as well as I do. That's a wonderful thing. And then if it's more people, even better. You know, you're part of the Hobby News Daily team along with myself. Looking forward to seeing your work, and that's going to be a form, right? You can share an outlet some of your thoughts, whether it be the hobby, sports, or whatever might be on your mind. Kind of talk about. I know Danny Black, who that I'm helping him with that, but that's his entity. He reached out and you know he did ask me what I thought, and I told him she's very polished beyond her age, and you know I think she'd be great. Just kind of talk about what you're looking forward even with that site as it grows, and that's the nice thing is it's a new site, it's a couple months in, and so all of us are going to kind of be part of the growth of that site.
Yeah. So my first story, I'm working on it. Um, to tease it, I should be finished with it by the end of this week. But it will be about Topps Big League Baseball this year with the five content creators that they featured in the product, and kind of talking about their journeys within cards and how they got themselves to be on a card in Topps Big League. And it's a cool accomplishment for each of them in their own ways. So I'm excited to share that. And the thing I think I'm most excited for is kind of tying in storytelling with cards. I've never really tried to do that. I do that in my content a little bit, but in a written format, I don't think there's a lot of it in the hobby, at least not yet. I think other companies and other things may explore that in the future. But I'm excited to just kind of share different opinions, share different stories, and let people that read the website get to know more about me and the people that are involved in this hobby.
Yeah, no doubt. I obviously haven't seen the column yet, the article yet, but in saying what the topic is, I'm sure you well know, not me, but a lot of people have sort of, you know, why those five or complain. And so, in defense of those five content creators, right? Who's going to say no if Tops says, hey, we want to put you on a card in a product we're releasing, right? So, to be, the animosity maybe some of those folks are unfairly receiving. It's just there's a lot of jealousy sometimes in the hobby, and I think that was a case where it raised its head. And any one of us, they asked you or me, we're sure as heck probably going to say yes. So instead of kind of being angry, maybe just being happy for those people, whether we agree with the selection or not. There's thousands of content creators. They're not going to make 1,000 cards. So that's the five that, for whatever their reasons are, they chose. And I'm looking forward to reading your perspective on it, and I'm sure it'll be a great thing. We got when the Nationals coming. We're one day closer here. How many have you been to so far?
I've been to two. I went to the past two, so Chicago 2021 and Atlantic City 2022.
I'm assuming you're on track to be at Chicago this year as well. All right, so I
Yeah,
got to ask
hopefully.
you.
That's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, no doubt. Your first one, your first one, because even as for as long as I've been in the hobby, Kayla, my first one I believe was 2018. So it wasn't like I've been to 20 of them. I've been to four or five now. Um, but that first one, right? Everyone kind of tells you what it's like or what to expect, and then you get there, and when you see it for yourself, is even if you think you don't know until you get there. Kind of speak to the first one, just your memories of the first one.
Yeah. So I actually got the opportunity to go because I won a giveaway from Santiago Sports in Kentucky, Roadshow, Kentucky Basketball Cards, Jimmy. So I won a contest they did, and so they actually paid for my trip to go there, which was incredible. I'm super grateful for that opportunity. So that was a bit overwhelming in itself, just because I had never been to a big show like that. The biggest show I had been to was Chantilly, but I think pre 2021, that show wasn't really like the show it is now. And so that was crazy because I also got to meet so many people I'd talked to on social media for so long. I mean, my account had started in 2016. So in 2021, that was first time I met a lot of people I'd only talked to on social media. So that's one super cool thing about the National is it brings in so many different people from all over the world, not even just the United States, from all over the world, which cards connect us all. We all collect, and whether we collect the same thing or not, it brings us all together, which is awesome about the National. And it's just a lot of cards. Like, there's just so many, and you'll find at least one card you'll want. I'm guaranteeing you can find at least one thing you want. At the very, very least, there's definitely something for everybody. There may not be the very specific card you're looking for, but you may be able to find number 2 on your list or number 3 on your list. So I think that's how I would sum up the National. It's big, there's a lot of cards and a lot of people.
Yeah, no doubt. When I went to my first one, I appeared on Eric Norton's show with Beckett, and he asked me the same kind of question. John, this is your first, even though you've been in the hobby a long time, this is your first national. What do you think? And my answer was pretty quick. I just said, if it isn't here, it may not exist. I mean, there's just so many cards here, even rare stuff, obviously with all the auction booths and the stuff they have on display. If it isn't here, it may not exist. I mean, I'm sure there's something that isn't there. I'm embellishing a little bit, but piggybacking kind of off what you said, if you can't find it there, it's got to be really really rare because they just have something for everybody, and really all the bases covered. And it's whether you want to buy or sell, or just even look at some amazing stuff. That if you're not having, if you're in the hobby, or you're a collector or hobbyist, and you go to national, you're not having fun. You're doing something wrong. You're going, assuming you go this year, it'll be your third one. Is your approach any different going to your third national? Uh, after attending two, or is the mindset similar?
I'd say it's time. I think my collecting journey has really sped up in the past 2 years. I've just I guess in a general sense, it's just sped up a lot. Like I've grown my brand so much because in 2021, I like wasn't really I didn't show my face on social media. I was still card collector 8117. And so now it's more of an opportunity to talk to people. Card I go for cards too. Like I purchase and go through bargain bins and stuff like that. But the first one was definitely more card centered. I went to every booth at least once. I made sure to look at every card I could. Last year was different because I helped with a woman in the hobby booth, and that was more of an experience and getting to talk to people and getting to make different connections. So I think this year I'll probably try to do both. I don't know exactly what my schedule will look like for that yet. I'm talking to hopefully helping with the women hobby booth again, but I would like to look at more cards than I did last year. And I think Chicago, I like that venue more than Atlantic City. So my approach is a little bit different.
Yeah, no doubt. You're more experienced. You know what to expect. It's like I'll use a sports analogy here, Kayla. It's like a third or fourth year quarterback, right? He's starting, and everything's slowing down. He can read the defenses a little bit smoother. He's not panicking, a little more poised. I think it's probably that's the analogy I kind of think of with hearing you say that. For a young female collector, or a young collector in general, not even to put a male or female on it, that's maybe thinking about, getting into the hobby. What's one piece of advice you would definitely share with someone that maybe is on the fence, a little tentative, they're young, maybe they're shy, they're, the hobby changes so much by the week, by the month, they're a little fearful to jump in. What would you tell someone that describes them like that?
Yeah, so I have not always been this outspoken. I have not always put myself out there as much as I do now. That's definitely grown with my time in the hobby. So it's natural to be a little shy and be hard to talk to dealers. I was that way. My first national, I was shell shocked to meet card collector too, and now I call him a friend and I talk to him here and there. But it's natural to have that kind of experience where you're nervous to meet other collectors, other dealers, that kind of thing. And then also, there's cards for everybody. There's something to collect for everybody. There's Stranger Things, there's Garbage Pail, there's Pokemon, there's lacrosse. There's so many different opportunities to collect and collect what you like because if the value goes down, you'll still like it. And I think don't let anybody tell you how to collect because everybody's collecting journey is different. Everybody collects different things. Everybody has different price points and different amounts that they're comfortable in spending on cards. And my collection when I started was just raised base cards because that's what made me excited. And now I have the opportunity to buy like rare raised cards, like autographs and stuff like that. And so that is still the root of my collecting, but it's grown. And so collections over time grow. And I would also say don't be afraid to talk to people and ask questions because I mean, if somebody's rude to you, then that might have not been the right person to ask. But I'd say 98% of the hobby would be willing to answer any questions. There's always people to reach out to. So those would be my probably top three tips.
Yeah, well said, right? Yeah, a couple of things I want to highlight what you said, right? There's so many different things you can collect, uh, whatever it may be. You don't have to be rich, whether it be, bargain box, you can find some diamonds in the rough. Plenty of people there that will help you. sure you get that one bad app or one bad experience, but that's really not the commonplace. It's like you said, use 98%. It's a high percentage of people want to help you, will help you, and that sort of thing. I think you personify that in how you handle yourself and conduct what you do, and you're a great example for anyone that's maybe on the fence or a little tentative. And I'm sure, not to make more work for you, but I'm sure if anyone asks you, I know I'm the same way. We would try to help them as best we could, and there's a lot of people like that. That's a real good thing. So I appreciate you giving some time to Sports Card Nation today, Kayla. Give out any of your socials, anything you want to plug. Take your time. You can put it out there for those that want to see more of what you're doing.
Yeah. So my Instagram is the main place I post most of my content. So that's Kayla.collects, which is right here actually, or I don't know which hand. This way. There we go. It's opposite. And then also I have another Instagram account, Norsy Network, which is my YouTube channel also, which is NORZY Network, which is where I post interviews with athletes. And I've started to post a little bit of sports card content on there. That's just a place to kind of explore that venture. And so that's on YouTube and on Instagram. And then I'm also on Hobby News Daily. And my first article will more than likely be out by the time this comes out. So make sure you check that out. There's a lot of cool stories, cool writers on there also.
Yeah, no doubt. A little shameless plug there, being involved in it. HobbyNewsDaily.com. You can sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get that notification when Kayla's article gets released, and can check it out. I'm looking forward to it. I think a lot of other people will be as well. So it was a pleasure talking with you, getting your perspective, Kayla. Continued success, and look forward to reading your stuff. And seeing what you do and meeting you hopefully here in a few months as well at the National.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.